I'm leaving you for someone who actually matters in this world.
Those words didn't just end my marriage. They were screamed into a microphone at my company's annual awards gala in front of 300 colleagues, just as I was about to receive the Financial Excellence Award. But what my wife didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for months, and her public humiliation would be the catalyst for her complete downfall. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment below and subscribe to this channel for more infidelity stories and cheating wife stories on YouTube. My name is Michael Brennan. At 46, I'd spent 18 years building my reputation as one of Boston's most trusted wealth managers at Whitmore Capital, the kind of guy who made his clients sleep better at night knowing their futures were secure. Boring? Maybe. But it paid for the life my wife Sarah thought she deserved. The awards ceremony was supposed to be my night. After years of quiet, methodical work, I was finally being recognized. Sarah had insisted on coming, even bought a new dress for the occasion, a red number that cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. I should have known something was off when she kept checking her phone during my acceptance speech. As I reached for the award, she suddenly stood up, grabbed the microphone from the presenter, and delivered her announcement. The room went silent. 300 pairs of eyes shifted between us. I saw my boss, Richard Whitmore himself, frozen mid-applause. My secretary Janet covered her mouth in shock. But here's what Sarah didn't know. I'd discovered her affair with Blake Harrison, the pharmaceutical sales director at MedTech Solutions, 6 months earlier. While she thought she was playing me for a fool, I'd been quietly documenting everything and preparing for exactly this moment. Let me rewind to where it all started. Sarah and I met at a financial conference in Chicago 15 years ago. She was ambitious, working her way up at MedTech Solutions, one of Boston's fastest-growing pharmaceutical companies. I was the quiet analyst who noticed things others missed, like how she always positioned herself near the power players at networking events, or how her laugh changed depending on who she was talking to. We married 2 years later in a ceremony that cost twice what I'd budgeted, because appearances matter, Michael. She mapped out our life like a business plan, the right neighborhood, the right country club, the right social circle. Everything was about climbing higher. The cracks started showing 5 years ago when I failed to make partner at my first firm.
How am I supposed to introduce you at events?
She'd asked.
This is embarrassing, Michael. Janet's husband just made VP at Goldman.
When we couldn't conceive after 3 years of trying, the tests revealed my low sperm count. I'll never forget sitting in that sterile doctor's office, the words hitting me like physical blows. All my life, I'd imagined being a father, teaching my son to throw a baseball, walking my daughter down the aisle. I'd already picked out names, imagined bedtime stories, visualized family vacations. In 30 seconds, that future evaporated.
These results indicate severe oligospermia,
The doctor said gently.
Your chances of natural conception are less than 2%.
I couldn't breathe. Sarah sat beside me, her face a mask of cold calculation, even as I struggled to process the devastation. On the drive home, I finally broke the silence. We could try IVF or adoption.
With what money?
Sarah snapped.
You didn't make partner, remember? Besides, do you really think I want to go through all that just because you're—
She didn't finish, but the word hung in the air. Defective. That night, I found her crying, not out of grief for our lost dreams, but on the phone with her sister.
It's so unfair to me,
She sobbed.
Why should I have to suffer because he's not man enough to give me children?
From that moment, everything changed. Sarah weaponized my diagnosis in every argument.
Maybe if you could give me children, I wouldn't need to focus so much on my career.
When I suggested counseling,
What's the point? Therapy won't fix your sperm count.
at dinner parties, she'd make cutting remarks.
Michael's great with numbers, not so great with other things.
I threw myself into work, desperate to compensate for my biological failure. Every promotion I chased, every bonus I earned, it was all to prove I was still worth something. I lavished her with gifts, trips, anything to see something other than disappointment in her eyes. But nothing was ever enough.
Janet's pregnant again.
She announced one morning, her voice dripping with accusation.
Must be nice to have a real man who can actually fulfill his biological purpose.
The guilt consumed me. I stopped arguing when she stayed out late. I looked the other way when charges appeared on credit cards. I convinced myself I deserved her coldness, her distance. What right did I have to demand loyalty when I couldn't give her the one thing that mattered? She threw herself into her career, which increasingly meant late nights with the sales team, weekend conferences that I later discovered never existed, and a sudden interest in fitness that coincided with her new boss, Blake Harrison, joining MedTech. Blake was everything I wasn't. Loud, charismatic, and, as Sarah made sure to mention after the company picnic,
probably the kind of guy who could get a woman pregnant just by looking at her.
The cruelty of that comment stayed with me for weeks. Sarah came home gushing about his innovative strategies and dynamic leadership. When she started working directly under him on special projects, the late nights increased. The first real evidence came when I was reviewing our credit card statements, a habit from my profession. A charge at the Ritz-Carlton downtown on a Tuesday afternoon when she was supposedly in a sales meeting. Then another at a jewelry store for a men's watch that never appeared in our home. But the moment I knew for certain was when she left her laptop open one morning. An email from Blake popped up. "Last night was incredible. Can't wait to implement our merger strategy again soon." Attached was a hotel confirmation for the following week. My first instinct was to blame myself. Of course, she'd found someone else, someone whole, someone who could give her everything I couldn't. I actually sat there, staring at evidence of her betrayal, and thought, this is what I deserve. But then something shifted. Maybe it was the casual cruelty of their inside joke, or the realization that she'd been planning this while I tortured myself with guilt. For the first time in years, I felt something other than shame. I felt anger. Instead of confronting her, I started planning. First, I consulted Thomas Adams, Boston's best divorce attorney, who happened to be a client whose portfolio I'd saved during the 2008 crash.
"Document everything,"
he advised.
"Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state, but infidelity changes the game."
Over the next 3 months, I restructured our finances. The joint investment account she never bothered to check. I moved 90% of it into a trust, leaving just enough to avoid suspicion. The documentation was all legal. She'd signed the papers without reading them, too busy texting during our boring financial meetings. I also hired a private investigator, James Murphy, a former detective who specialized in corporate espionage cases. What he uncovered went beyond simple adultery. Blake and Sarah weren't just having an affair. They were involved in a kickback scheme with suppliers, skimming money from MedTech's purchasing department. The evidence was damning. Emails, bank transfers, even photos of them meeting with suppliers at that same Ritz-Carlton. 2 weeks before the awards ceremony, Sarah's behavior shifted. She was almost giddy, talking about big changes coming and how everything was about to fall into place. She bought new clothes, got her hair done weekly, and started looking at condos in Blake's neighborhood. One night, she was practically glowing at dinner.
You know, Michael, maybe things worked out for the best. Can you imagine if we'd had kids? You'd probably be too tired from all that boring financial work to even play with them.
Then came an unexpected visit from Emily Peterson, one of Sarah's colleagues at MedTech. She sat in my office, nervously fidgeting with her coffee cup.
"Michael, I shouldn't be here, but you deserve to know. Sarah and Blake are planning something. She's been telling people at work that she's leaving you, but they want to make a statement. Blake thinks public humiliation will make you less likely to fight the divorce.
I thanked Emily and assured her I appreciated the warning. What she didn't know was that her information completed my puzzle. A public humiliation? They'd just given me the perfect stage for my response. The morning of the awards ceremony, I made my final preparations. The USB drive containing evidence of their kickback scheme was safely in my suit pocket. My lawyer was on standby. The private investigator was positioned in the hotel lobby, where Blake had booked a suite for their post-ceremony celebration. As Sarah got ready, humming to herself in the mirror, I watched her with a strange detachment. This woman I'd shared my life with was about to destroy me publicly, and she was humming. "You look beautiful," I told her, meaning it. She'd never looked more beautiful or more like a stranger.
Well, it's a big night,
She said, that secret smile playing on her lips. At the ceremony, I kept my composure through dinner and the speeches. Sarah kept checking her phone, presumably coordinating with Blake. When they called my name for the Financial Excellence Award, I walked to the stage, my heart steady despite what I knew was coming. Sure enough, as I reached for the award, Sarah stood and took the microphone.
"I'm leaving you for someone who actually matters in this world,"
She announced.
18 years of my life wasted on a man who thinks a balanced portfolio is an achievement. Blake Harrison and I are in love, and I'm finally choosing happiness over this mediocrity.
The silence was deafening. I saw Blake near the bar, his expression shifting from smug satisfaction to concern as he realized the magnitude of what she'd just done. I waited for her to finish, then calmly took the microphone from her. "Thank you, Sarah, for making this so much easier," I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this interruption. However, since my soon-to-be ex-wife has chosen this forum for personal announcements, I have one of my own. I pulled out the USB drive and held it up. This contains evidence of a kickback scheme involving MedTech Solutions Purchasing Department. My attorney has already forwarded copies to the FBI, the SEC, and MedTech's Board of Directors. Blake Harrison and Sarah Brennan have been stealing from the company that employs many of you here tonight. The room erupted. Blake tried to leave, but security, alerted by my lawyer, was already moving toward him. Sarah stood frozen, her red dress now seeming like a target. "As for our divorce," I continued, "my attorney will contact yours on Monday. Though you should know the joint account you plan to empty has been legally restructured. The $1.2 million you thought was there, it's now protected in a trust. Your access was revoked the moment you took this microphone." Richard Whitmore himself approached the stage.
"Michael, are these allegations substantiated?"
"Every document is authenticated, sir. My only regret is that it involves MedTech, where many good people work." What happened next was swift. Blake was escorted out by security. Sarah tried to follow, but Emily Peterson and other MedTech employees blocked her path, demanding answers. The ceremony continued, but the real drama was in the lobby, where police had arrived to question Blake. Thomas met me outside with a satisfied expression.
That was quite a performance.
"It wasn't a performance," I said, suddenly exhausted. It was the truth finally having its moment. The next 3 months were a whirlwind. The FBI investigation into MedTech's purchasing department uncovered a network of corruption that went beyond Blake and Sarah. 12 people were eventually indicted. Blake was arrested on federal charges. Sarah, who had been more careful with her involvement, avoided criminal charges, but was fired immediately and became virtually unemployable in the pharmaceutical industry. During our divorce proceedings, Sarah's lawyer tried to argue for alimony, claiming she'd supported my career. Thomas demolished that argument with documentation, showing she'd actually spent more than she'd ever contributed, including $200,000 on clothes, jewelry, and trips I'd never known about.
Your client attempted to publicly humiliate mine at his professional achievement ceremony.
Thomas stated calmly.
She announced an affair with a man now facing federal charges. She participated in defrauding her employer, and she attempted to empty accounts she'd never contributed to. We're offering a clean break. She walks away with her personal belongings and the car. Nothing more.
Sarah's lawyer, clearly out of his depth, conferred with her privately. When they returned, Sarah looked defeated in a way I'd never seen.
We accept,
her lawyer said quietly. As we signed the papers, Sarah finally spoke to me directly.
Did you ever love me?
I loved who I thought you were, I replied. But that person never existed, did she? 6 months after the ceremony, I received a call from Richard Whitmore.
Michael, we've been discussing your situation at the board level. Your integrity during this difficult situation has been noted. We'd like to offer you the position of Chief Compliance Officer at Whitmore Capital.
The position came with a substantial salary increase, and more importantly, the opportunity to build systems preventing the kind of corruption Sarah and Blake had perpetrated. I accepted immediately. A year later, I stood in my new office overlooking Boston Harbor. The award ceremony photo still sat on my desk, not as a reminder of humiliation, but of liberation. Sarah had intended to destroy me publicly. Instead, she'd freed me from a marriage built on deception and given me the opportunity to rebuild my life with integrity. I learned through former colleagues that Sarah had moved to Arizona, working as a freelance consultant, struggling to make ends meet. Blake was serving 5 years in federal prison. Their grand love affair had lasted exactly as long as their scheme, until the consequences arrived. As I prepare for dinner with some friends, I realize the hollow feeling that once defined my days has been replaced with something solid. Self-respect. The guilt I carried for years about my infertility has finally lifted. I understand now that my inability to have children with Sarah wasn't a failure. It was a blessing. A child deserves parents who love with authenticity, not manipulation. My condition didn't make me less of a man. Staying with someone who used my deepest pain as a weapon would have. Sarah took my marriage, but she gave me something far more valuable, the opportunity to build a life based on truth. And that's a calculation that will always balance in my favor. Thank you for listening. Like the video and subscribe for more infidelity stories, cheating wife stories, and inspirational stories about finding the strength to start over.